We're recording there, and we're recording here. Welcome to the Christian Principles Podcast. I'm Matt George.
And I'm Mark Zockoll.
He's
coming in from the dugout. There's a beautiful specimen coming up to the plate right now. He is 6'4", hard 240, and he's coming in with a bat, size of Texas. Points to the outfield.
Swing and a miss.
Square.
All right.
No.
Oh, sorry.
No.
Sorry. Sorry. I took it down the negative road.
I would have hit the home run, like the Babe, the Sultan of SWAT, the Sultan of SWAT.
Oh man, you know what's really okay? Let's get this podcast started right. It's amazing to me that those guys held records for as long as they did without having an actual home run fence for a big portion of their early careers.
Absolutely. Or that they used
amazing
like the same ball, which became a brick by the end of the game,
right?
Or like the same three balls.
Yeah.
Like those kinds of.
I just feel like a lot of those records ought to be untouched.
Oh sure.
Even though guys have broken them, like for me, Lou Gehrig's consecutive games played, like being broken out or beaten out by, was it Jeter that beat him?
Don't say that. Don't.
I'm sorry, but I'm just saying.
Don't say that. It was Cal Ripken Jr.
Oh, there was Cal
idol.
Ripken. That's who it was. I couldn't remember.
I've never been closer to stopping this podcast and like physically assaulting you.
Sorry, Lou shows how much I care about
Derek Jeter.
I'm sorry. I couldn't remember who it was.
The nemesis of all that is right and good in the world as the Yank. I can't.
Well, I was just saying because Lou Gehrig,
the shortstop, the cap,
had that record for so long
until Cal Ripken took it from him.
But he had to play for so much longer to achieve that record too.
I hope you're not listening to this. I hope you are, but at the same time, I hope you're not because.
So let's respond to thoughts on selling Christian schools.
I will not let this go. What is impressive about Lou Gehrig is that like the trainers back then were probably like rubbing horse liniment on his knees and stuff. You know,
I mean,
like literally go rub dirt in it.
Whatever.
Okay.
I'm getting into territory I'm not comfortable with.
All right, move along.
Obviously.
Okay, brand partner time. Let's go.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. All right, what are we actually talking about today?
Today we are talking about a reaction. Yeah,
I like the reaction.
I just had a guttural reaction to you saying Derek Jeter on our podcast.
That's okay. I have the same reaction to him. I just attributed the record to the wrong guy. I'm sorry.
Unless you're Joel from our college days and you're a Yankees fan from Colorado,
I'm not.
Then no thank you.
I'm unfortunately more knowledgeable of 1920s baseball than I am of 2000 or plus. But we're reacting to an episode, that we had a little while ago.
So we talked about previously on this podcast, the Christian Principles Podcast, which you're listening to on Apple and Spotify and Amazon Music and Podbean and all the rest of them. We talked previously about how Mark was a bad salesman, and how Mark needed to do a better job of selling his Christian education as a whole Christian school. So we had a long-time listener, great peer, mentoring game, blah, 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 talked to us about a reaction he had to Mark being a bad salesman. And if he was going to go and sell Christian education, how he would go about selling it. And he had several points of thought.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and we have those in writing because he provided them to me in writing. So we're going to read through them and we're going to react to the reaction. Okay?
Yeah.
So these 5 thoughts are a way that he said he would go about selling Christian education. And as the first episode did not completely say all we wanted to say and get through all we wanted to do. In fact, we were, I think, at 40 minutes, and I was wanting to talk about more. We stopped.
Just getting the ball rolling.
Yeah. He also isn't trying to get everything in here. He's saying if we put these on a billboard, if we were offered to say whatever we wanted to say about Christian ed, this is what we would say. So I'll read you the first one, okay? Mm-hmm. And it says, the best level of school setting, safety. And what he meant by that in further discussion was the number one thing we could be selling in the modern day is that we have excellent safety. We have top grade safety. We have industry excellent safety. We have invested in this more, or we have whatever else it happens to be.
And perhaps just from a practical standpoint, like just because of a smaller scale, you generally are going to have better safety. It's just a little easier to control. But yeah, I mean, it is a big deal. And I think, especially in the day and age that we live in, that is a high priority for parents.
We're thinking, so sadly, we recently had the Wisconsin attack, or the attack on the Abundant Life Christian School in Wisconsin. We're very, very sad and upset about that, of course, but as much as we do have parents who consider and think about those horrific events, when I read safety here, I also think of like just the bullying.
Sure.
Bullying is a big deal in schools nowadays, and how many parents have come to our offices and sat down and said, the reason I'm looking to switch schools is because my kid was being bullied.
Yeah.
Because my kid was not feeling safe when they went to school for whatever reason. And they're not the same thing, and they need to be addressed on two different levels, but I think we would definitely read safety into this.
Yeah, is it reading too much into it to say, like, even content that they're being taught? Be safe as well. But yeah, it's kind of an interesting thing because, you do have those parents that they ask the questions like, what do you do in this situation? What do you do with that? And then you have those parents, you're like trying to sell safety. They're like, that's fine, whatever.
Yeah, whatever. Well, and then I always found it very valuable when a first responder would come through and hear what we did and be thankful for it.
Yeah.
That was also very meaningful. Or when we had the fire department come and praise us for getting out of the building as fast as we were able to get out of the building. Those things are not without meaning.
Right.
I appreciate that. I think we would agree here.
Yeah.
It should be something perhaps, and again, on the previous episode, we were going foundational. We were hitting the biblical truth.
Yeah.
And these hit that, but these also assume that to some level. So here's another one. He says, premium academic training. This means zero tolerance for rich kids that are awful in class. And this is not to like throw rich kids as the only kids that are awful in class.
Yeah.
But it's just interesting how he puts this. So, well, actually, let's just start there. We'll
Sure.
just start with premium academic training. And the first part of what he says is this means zero tolerance for rich kids that are awful in class. And again, we know that there's more than just rich kids awful in class. But let's talk about that part for a second.
Yeah, I'm going to jump on the zero tolerance. Mainly, I think at the end of the day, if you are selling here's what our classrooms are set up to be, a professional environment allowing for students to engage in the content, engage with their peers, and grow, and something gets in the way of that, and you have zero tolerance, as you brought up already, bullying, and you bring up, just like a contrary attitude to that mission or to that objective. Zero tolerance, yes, in the sense that it needs to be addressed. I as a Christian school educator, do kind of struggle though with the, well, you misbehaved, so get out of here.
One and done. I want it done.
Yeah.
And
So
I don't want to read into this necessarily that that's what he's saying. Zero tolerance is zero tolerance.
But
so we could read that.
If I'm gonna read into his response, it's that we're only going to allow him. We're going to keep him here because he's bringing in money, and that comes down to then also, your motivation for accepting students.
Sure.
And whether you're an open enrollment, closed enrollment. Our school is a closed enrollment, so this is kind of where it's almost a non-issue. I mean, it's always going to be an issue, but a non-issue for us because we're looking to partner with parents for another reason.
Sure.
And so I've never been really that kind of an administrator that says, well, we got to keep them here because of the money. And if a Christian school is to that point, like, ugh.
Well, and where's the faith in God at that point? Too? And this is not to say that our brothers and sisters who gave money back or didn't take money in their salary over the years did so inappropriately or something like that. This is just to say, for this specific case,
so
if we find ourselves keeping that kid around because of the money,
but then
we should be able to look past that and maturely see that there's an investment much larger than that one child. That one. We do not live and breathe or operate on the back of any one family.
Yeah, but then to see that as a selling point, which I guess that's where we ultimately have to come back to, is by doing that, I guess I look at that more as an expectation of what Christian schools do.
Yeah.
And
we should say
if we have to, if we need,
it.
if he's saying that we need to bring that out because people don't recognize that that's even an option, then okay.
If this is his first blush reaction, that means that the schools around him, us, we're not doing a good enough job saying you can expect that there isn't preference provided regardless of behavior.
Yeah.
You can expect that behavior is expected across the norm. Now this keeps going.
There's a second part of this.
Yeah, this is premium academic training. This means zero tolerance for, we'll skip the rich kids and off the class and go to, this means zero tolerance for hiring only certified, formally trained educators and not pastors, brother-in-laws who had a previous brush with subject matter in a former life. Now again, this is not provided to us with any kind of filtering, really.
Right.
This is the first blush reaction.
Yeah.
And maybe this comes from a part of his history, his past.
Sure. I mean,
could very well, or maybe it's just what he thinks of.
Well, if we could maybe term this as a Christian school cliche of the expectation is you're putting teachers in the classrooms, whoever's willing, whoever raised their hand in church, and says, "I'll go and do it." Like, great, you do it.
If that's what we're saying,
But here's kind of the thing, and here's my reaction to this, because I'm often meeting, perhaps criticism is a strong word for it, but where parents' reactions to, who is teaching a certain subject, especially it tends to happen a little bit more in high school than in elementary, because we might bring in a teacher to teach a specific subject. When they ask for the rationale as to why is the school going to hire that person to teach this, because they're not qualified. Are they qualified to do that?
And we're like, no, I was picking my nose, and I decided that if this came out this way, I was going to...
Or even going back to even what we were saying, we felt like we should save a little bit of money, and so, we didn't want to go out and actually pay for somebody to teach this, and they were willing to do it without being paid, But to jump to that conclusion as that's the school's first priority, when in reality, when it comes to hiring, and I appreciate the comment. I don't want to put that down.
Again, the comment comes from somewhere,
and it's what's in people's minds. So we as leaders need to understand that, and then turn around as a selling point. But if I can control the hiring process, like, forget it. We don't need to be talking anymore, because if I can handpick who should teach everything, then we have no problems.
Yeah, we're great.
But the problem is when I point to somebody and say, "You come teach this subject," they're like, "Pay me," and I'm like, "I can't." Or even like, "Well, I'm going to go teach over there because I like, that place more," or I want to go home, or I'm getting married and I need to go to that person. Like, all of these reasons as to why we have the perfect person, but they slip through our fingers.
And this is not,
and that's outside of our control.
And this is not a Christian school problem. This is problem with all of our peer institutions. We're all looking for teachers right now.
But what we should be saying when it comes to premium academic training is, again, we are not simply going to choose somebody blindly
or based on a credential.
We're going to bring somebody in that we are confident that either, if it's perhaps they need, they're going to be doing the best they can with the content. They're going to make up for it because they have other gifts, other values that we have of them being in the
truth as their basis. Again, I cannot overstate that for my child, if I have the difference between in the formative years, and we're talking about formative years here. We're talking about the time when they're learning and growing the most literally in their lives. I'm going to bring somebody in who cannot express to me the gospel of Jesus Christ, but has an LEd degree. Or I'm going to bring somebody in who absolutely can express to me the gospel of Jesus Christ, and who has worked with kids in a number of years, a number of ways, and is looking to make a transition in lifetime in their career path, which, by the way, look around at the schools and universities, the colleges, there are so many options now for mid-career change people going into teaching, because that is such a big deal. I'm absolutely going to look at those people and say, yes, I want to consider you for this possibility. I'm not going to, I've heard it said before, I'm not going to knock them off the list because they don't necessarily have that. if they have the other markers of what it means, of what our school is founded to be, and that is a Bible-believing, Christ-first institution, pursuing excellence with the students in the teaching thereof. Yes.
So I guess to just come back, because I know we've got other points to get to
there's
too,
more
but
case,
as a selling point in premium academic training, to me, the selling point is, again, like our schools, one of our taglines is pursuing excellence. That's all captured in that when we hire a teacher, when we have students in a classroom, we ought to continually come back to that mission of pursuing excellence in every area, including academics, which we should assume, if we're going to have assumptions, means we're holding to a higher standard. We're going to perform better. We're going to be expecting more.
As unto God, not unto men.
So
absolutely,
that's what we're pushing out. Number three,
marketable knowledge and skills as an outcome. So I think about this, and I think of the schools which have, for whatever reason, foregone their tech training, for whatever reason have foregone their skills training, for whatever reason have foregone or gotten rid of or depleted their hands-on experiences for their students because of cost, because of time, because of demanded pursuits elsewhere, whatever it happens to be. Here's a reminder for us that we are making sure that our students are walking away having put hands on items that are able to help them grow. This is public, private, parochial, number three makes sense for all of us because, there's plenty of parents out there who are probably not looking for, maybe they're not even looking for college prep, maybe they are looking for the hands-on to lead to the tech career, and that makes sense.
And again, if I recall our conversation on selling our school in our last episode, we talked a lot about trying not to compare, what we do as compared to public schools, and here's why we stand out, or here's why we shine. We may not have the resources that the public school has.
The full shop class,
right?
Full welding class or whatever.
But at the same time, I like the point here by saying there are things that we do.
Absolutely.
And forget the comparisons, forget, while we may say, hey, our kids can do this, and they could probably do it there too, don't neglect actually sharing our kids can do this. Or we make this a priority and actually highlight it.
We actually have a high school shop class. We actually have students put their hands on wood, put their hands on metal, put their hands on fabricating.
They change a tire.
We've done electrical, electrical work. We've tried to touch Python before, the programming software and whatnot. So yes, well taken. Make sure that we are selling. Number four, high quality out of classroom learning opportunities. This goes hands in hand with three. High quality out of classroom learning opportunities, field trips, internships, job shadowing, lab days, local government experience, etc. I'll start at field trips.
Yeah.
Field trips are a huge deal, and it very, very easily is a major standing off point for most of our Christian schools. Most of our Christian schools, small or large, do a wonderful job about taking children in their school away from campus for further growth. That is not at all, especially since COVID, that is not at all something to be expected everywhere. And so it could be something that he's pointing out, well, it's something that we do, or whether he knows this, it's something that we do at a rate which is far higher than is expected elsewhere.
Yeah, and that's where, again, I think we get
away from campus, too.
We get comfortable with the things that have become just an expectation, or it's just, it's on the calendar, we do that. But it's something that now really should be celebrated. It should be highlighted. Because, when I grew up in a Christian school, we went on field trips all the time. And we knew which field trips we were going on, too.
It's a rotation.
So, we knew going into third grade, now we're going to get to go here, and we're going to get to go there. And in some ways, it was just that's the expectation. That's what everybody does. But
it's not.
It's not.
Not at all. No. And further than that, I think of your home school back in Clymer,
PA.
That takes students consistently to Washington, D.C. For several days on end. That would be an honors course somewhere else. That's an honors course that earns that sort of trip somewhere else, and here it is the expectation. I think about the mission trips we were just talking about.
This is the other thing too, the things that we overlook or we think weren't that important. We went to in Pittsburgh. There's the Carnegie Science Center.
There's nothing good in Pittsburgh.
Carnegie Science Center is And I'm telling you, like,
Is it Carnegie or is it Carnegie? I've always said
okay,
Carnegie.
all right, we'll get into it.
All right.
Carnegie.
Time out.
It's he's a regular Scot, you know, Andrew Carnegie.
Carnegie.
And so you got to say it in the Scottish brogue. Carnegie.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. It's Carnegie.
Okay.
I mean, unless, well, whatever.
Okay.
But you know, I'm sure there are science centers, discovery centers, you know, all across our nation. But that one in particular is like top class, and it was just like, oh yeah, we're going to the science center this year again. You know, oh, we're going again.
Yeah.
But it was huge, and we had access to things. And I know other schools went there
It's
too,
like
but
going to Sight and Sound or something like that.
Sight and Sound, or you know, to go into the Baltimore Aquarium,
Sure.
going to Fort McHenry, you know, all these places. You know, again, for us, we have a plethora. DC is like, you know, oh yeah, we're going to DC again
today. We're coming back by 4:00. We'll leave at 7, come back by 4. You know.
But yeah, I mean, highlighting those things that you get to do. That again, I have the mentality. I'm right there. I have the mentality. It's nothing special, but it is.
But it is special.
It is.
It is special, and it should be. So we also mentioned the internships, job shadowing, lab days, local government experiences. Yes, and all that. And I think they all fall under the same exact thing we just said. We just need to do a better job advertising it because these are things that absolutely get done and are expected. Number 5, in a Christian environment taught by genuine Christians without stupid legalistic rules as much as possible.
Yes.
I mean, okay, that's fine. And this, again, I'm not going to say I know where he comes from at every point of this reply, but apparently there's been a time in his past where the Christian environment was perhaps taught by ungenuine Christians with stupid legalistic rules as much as possible. So this is a call for us to know what our brand, know what our identity looks like to others outside of us. And if their notation about who we are is that they are just the cookie cutter school, where all their kids look the exact same and all their kids do the exact same thing, or if their understanding of who we are is somehow like it's different than what we would want it to be, well, shame on us. And we need to do a better job selling what it is that we want it to be.
I would contend if you put school A right next to school B, where they have the exact same rule that in school A is considered legalistic, my guess is in school A, the approach to that rule is you do it because it's a rule, and you need to obey the rules. So no more discussion. Because if that's all that's said, then the innuendo or the assumption that goes along with that is, if you break the rules, you're no longer a spiritual person, or you're backsliding, or you are, you know, against God. Whereas in school B, they're going to support the idea, the same rule. They're going to support the idea of, yes, it's a rule, so rules ought to be followed. But the way they're going to communicate it is, you know, as a school, we have to establish an institutional standard. And we uphold that standard because we have a mission that says we pursue excellence in all things. And, you know, while this isn't perhaps a trivial thing that we're asking you to tuck your shirt in, which, you know, I feel like that's the thing you're going to end up going back to. Something like that. Or wear a belt, you know.
I mean, legalistic rules, I definitely do think of, you know, music and dress and eating our food with our mouths closed and raising our hands. And, like, okay.
But at the end of the day, again, what is making it legalistic? Legalistic is you are a terrible student unless you're doing exactly as you're told. Where I can still value a student and communicate value to them while encouraging them to in this small way. Because when they walk into that job that has the uniform expectations, I don't hear people screaming, legalism!
Or you're not doing anything with that kind of cough. But to your point, I'd also say there are we try to keep this, you know, focused on us, but let's just for a second say there are plenty of public schools, private schools elsewhere that have the exact same expectations for dress. In Wycomico County right now, You can see the students leaving school, or if they're dropped off in buses or whatnot. They're coming out in their blue jumpers with their white undershirts, or their blue pants and their white shirts. There's a uniform.
But
there's uniform. So it's not as though.
At the end of the day, it's how it's being communicated.
How is it communicated? And what do they think?
Because I mean, I've had conversations with parents in this office. When their concern with sending their children to our school is that we're so focused on rules, and yeah, we're going to crush their creativity. We're going to crush, and it's no, we're embracing that, but at the same time,
that's why I wake up in the morning.
Play through the scenario where kids can do whatever they want when they walk in the doors.
Yeah.
That's absolute chaos.
Yeah. I wake up in the morning to crush dreams.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I harp on this a lot in my history classes. Anytime we talk about democracy or liberty, because freedom isn't free. Yeah. And if it is completely free, it's absolute chaos. You cannot have complete freedom. I love using this illustration. If we had complete freedom, there is nothing stopping me from going across the road, going into that bank. Don't even need a shotgun. Just walk in and say, you know what? I'm going to walk into your vault and take away, $5,000 because I need $5,000 right now. Because I have absolute freedom. I can do that. Mm-hmm. But in that same scenario, that bank teller behind that counter, who also has absolute freedom, says, I can pull this shotgun out from behind this counter and just put a couple slugs right in you because I'm free to do so. Yeah. And then he can grab the $5,000 and walk out. Yeah, so it's chaos. So you have to have structure. You have to have rules, but not in the sense of I'm going to handcuff people with these rules. It's a guide. It's a boundary that allows us to say, you know what? We are comfortable performing within these boundaries. Mm-hmm. Outside of that boundary, it just opens the door to something that we as a Christian school have identified as it's either uncontrollable, it's really difficult to control once you get to that level, mm-hmm. or it's promoting a worldview or a lifestyle that is uncomfortable. It's
antithetical to the mission.
Correct. So that's where I come back to and just say, that's we just have to do a better job at selling that. And I agree on this point.
We agree
that it's frustrating even when you do preach it for a long time of that we're not just out to catch rule breakers. That's not what we're trying to accomplish. But it seems like, and maybe this is just the devil. Whenever you do something really well as a believer, you get that much more attack or back or kickback. In this area in particular is one I feel like it's just like the harder we are trying to communicate that kind of thing and executing that on a daily basis, the more it's like, well, let me throw this curveball at you. Yeah. It's like, another one. Here we go.
We're not even in the same state. I only knew this commenter for living in close proximity for 2 years. Yeah. So this isn't even something. He's not even near us. Yeah. But this is something that he would say too. So that's interesting. Yeah, that's good for us.
And he did wrap it up. He didn't put a number on this one, but he does say that influence eventually means vouchers, which means cheaper student costs and greater access for all in the community who would appreciate the service. And we've talked about school choice. We'll probably talk about it a lot more in the future too.
We'll see what happens.
And while that is definitely, I think, a goal of every Christian school, if we could offer Christian education for free.
Oh yeah.
I mean, who wouldn't?
Yeah.
But there is a cost of, doing things. Again, I go back to the cost of freedom. There's cost to performing schools, and so, that's something that we can definitely be praying about. That in the future, our country gets to a place where they can recognize the value of our education that we're providing, and we can get some assistance there. Of course, it does come with cautions, and we've got to watch. We got to be careful, but yeah, I think we would all be there if we could make it affordable. We could, but at the same time, my mind goes to, if it was affordable for everybody, we'd have to turn more people away because can't take everybody.
And many of us have that core value of affordability anyway, because
Yeah.
we have it for our church
Yeah.
members or for the members of the churches closely associated with us. So it's something that the churches want to make affordable anyway.
Yeah.
So there's already an eye towards that. We got to wrap this up.
This is good.
We
Let's,
gotta go
let's,
to
let's
our-
keep selling our schools.
This
Let's
is
keep
good.
doing a strong.
Come back at us.
Yeah.
Tell us what we got wrong. Okay, we're moving on to our Christian school administrator spotlight, and today that is Mr. Doug Abels.
Mr. Doug Abels, head of school at Bob Jones Academy.
BJA.
This is another one of those connected there to a college. So I mean, hey, you got high expectations whenever you have to lead the academy that's going to lead into the college level. But I actually had the opportunity to meet, I believe it's Dr. Doug Abels, in Guam.
Okay.
Back when my
Out in
alma
Harvest,
mater
I'm sure.
at Harvest, yep, we did a 2-week volleyball camp out there at Harvest, and he was kind of our tour guide. He shuttled us around. I think I drove his truck around a couple of times. Entertained his kids. I have a really great memory of his son just kept bringing book after book after. I was the only guy on the trip, by the way. My wife and I had just recently been married. We got to enjoy our first wedding anniversary twice because we went over the international date line on that trip. But Mr. Abels just stood out to me as a servant leader, and obviously that value was seen because Bob Jones picked him up, and he's heading the school there. I think he's been there for a while now, and see things from their social media every once in a while. So thank you, Doug, for all of that you do in the ministry that you have at Bob Jones Academy. And that's going to do it for this episode of the Christian Principles Podcast.
Yep. We've reacted. We've had fun. Hopefully it's been enjoyable. But in any case, thanks for growing with us today.